In this part of the presentation, I will talk about the nature of the motivation and motivation theory and explain how they are applied in the marketing. First, what is motivation? Motivation is the reason behind the consumer behavior. It explains the why consumers take action and such as budget or avoiding the product. A motive in the internal force that simulate and direct behavior. Moving on to the consumer behavior, motivation shapes consumer choice by influencing what, when, and how consumer buy. In action, consumers often have a multiple motive at the same time, and therefore their motive can change depending on a situation. To better understand the consumer motivation, there are two key theories. Firstly, the Maslow hierarchy of needs explains the motivation based on the different levels of the human need. And secondly, the misguided biological motive focus on the internal reason behind the consumer behavior. And they role in the marketing that help their theory help the marketer understand the predict and influence consumer decision. Focusing more on the mid-guide theory, motive can be divided into the four types. They include cognitive and affective motive, as well as the reservation and the raw motive. Together, their motive help explain the different consumer decisions. Another important part is that the consumer may experience motivational conflict when making a decision. For example, this includes choosing between the two attractive options with both positive and negative aspects, or two unattractive options. Building on this regulatory focus, a theory explains how two different motivational oriented. On the one hand, the promotion focus on the consumer seek role and achievement. On the other hand, the prevention focus on the consumer prioritize safety and security. Therefore, marketers should tailor their strategy based on the consumer regulatory focus. For example, promotion focus on the consumer response better to message highlighting the gain and opportunity, where prevention focus the consumer are more influenced by the message emphasizing safety and risk avoidance.
Moving on to the personality. Personality refers to an individual's consistent response patterns across similar situations, even when consumers share the same need, such as stress relief or social connections. Their personality differences lead them to behave differently. For example, a highly extrovert consumer may seek excitement through social activities, music, or bold bands, while a more introverted consumer may prefer calm, private, or familiar consumption experience. And brands leverage personality by aligning their image with specific consumer traits. In this example, Pepsi collaborates with Baby Monster to appeal to energetic, expressive, and youth-oriented consumers, reinforcing a bold and dynamic brand personality. Personality in consumer behavior is commonly studied using two approaches, the single trait and the multi-trait approaches. The single trait approaches focus on one dominant personality characteristic at a time. Examples include consumer ethnocentrism, which affects preference for domestic products, need for cognition, which includes how much consumers enjoy thinking and processing information, and need for uniqueness, which drives preference for distinctive brands. And moving to the multi-trait approach, looks at personality more holistically. The most widely used model is the Big Five or the OCEN, which includes openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Next, we will dive into the use of personality in marketing strategy. Personality is widely used in marketing through the concept of brand personality, which assigns human traits to brand. There are five core brand personality dimensions. Sincerity reflects honesty and warmth. Excitement emphasizes energy and innovations. Competence signals reliability and success. Sophistication represents elegance and status. And the last one, virtuousness, conveys toughness and outdoorsy image. By aligning brand personality with consumers' own personalities, marketers can create stronger emotion connections, improve brand fit, and increase brand preference and loyalty. So the last one we have emotion. Emotion refers to a specific identifiable feeling, while affect describe the liking or disliking aspect of that feeling. Emotion can be triggered by external events such as advertisement or products, or by internal process like mental imagery. These triggers cause psychological change, which are then interpreted based on situation, leading to feelings, affect thoughts, and behaviors. To classify emotion, researchers using the PAD model, which explain emotion through three dimensions. Pleasure show how positive or negative a feelings is. Arousal reflects the level of excitement or alertness, and the last one, dominance, indicates how much control a person feels.
Next, we let's move to attitude change strategy. So attitude change refers to how marketers try to influence what customers think, feel, or to do toward a brand. The first strategy is connected attitude change, which focuses on belief. Marketers provide new information or highlight product attributes to change what consumers think, such as quality, price, and performance. The second strategy is effective attitude shift, which focuses on emotion. Here, marketers use music, image, or storytelling to create positive feeling toward the brand, even without strong product information. The third strategy is behavior attitude shift. Instead of changing through or feeling first, marketers encourage customers to act. For example, through free trial or promotion. After using your product, attitude often change to match behavior in practice. Marketers often combine all three strategies depending on their situation. Business learning objective, individual and situation character. Attitude change does not work the same way for everyone because it depends on both individual and situation character. Individual character refer to who the consumer is. So factors such as investment level, motivation, prior experience, personality, and need for connection affect how easily attitude can be changed. Consumers with strong, exciting attitude are usually harder to pressure. Situational characteristics refer to the content in which persuasion happens. This includes time pressure, mood, social setting, and the communication medium, such as online virus in-store. And for example, the same consumer may ignore an ad when busy, but be more receptive when relaxed or influenced by friends. Therefore, effective execution happens when the strategy, the individual, and the situation are aligned.
So next, I want to talk about emotion in marketing. So in consumer behavior, emotion refers to short-term feelings that strongly influence how consumers make decisions. Instead of carefully comparing features, customers often rely on how a product makes them feel. In advertising, marketers frequently prioritize emotional appeals over information, especially when products are hard to differentiate. Like, for example, many brands don't explain technical details but focus on feelings like happiness, warmth, or excitement to create a stronger connection with consumers. So emotion help brands stand out and shape how consumers evaluate choices even before rational thinking starts. Move to emotion and marketing strategy. In marketing, emotion are not only created to excite consumers, but also to have them manage how they feel during consumption and shopping experiences. First, emotion arousal happens when products or marketing activities are designed to stimulate excitement or enthusiasm. For example, movies, music, and emotional Super Bowl advertisement aim to make consumers feel excited, entertained, or emotionally engaged with the brand. However, not all marketing strategies focus on excitement. Many brands instead focus on emotion reduction, which means helping consumers reduce negative emotion such as stress, guilt, anxiety, or shame. A good real-world example of emotion reduction is the "Doe Real Beauty" campaign. Instead of creating excitement, Doe focused on reducing anxiety and shame caused by unrealistic beauty standards. By showing real women in the advertisements, Doe have consumers feel accepted and emotionally comfortable, which builds trust and long-term loyalty toward the brand. So, in addition, consumers often experience negative emotion in product or service encounters, such as frustration after poor service. This leads to consumer copying, which refers to how consumers manage stress in this situation. So, next, consumers use three main copy strategy: active copy, impressive support seeking, and avoidance. This is why effective service design and employee training are important, as they can reduce negative emotion and prevent customer loss. Now, moving to chapter 11, we look at consumer attitude. An attitude is a learned tendency to respond either favorably or unfavorably toward a brand, product, or idea. Attitudes are important because they influence how consumers evaluate and choose products. Attitude consists of three components. The cognitive component involves belief or knowledge about a product. The affective component refers to feelings or emotion toward it. The behavioral components reflect purchase intention or actual behavior. However, these components do not always align, which explains why positive attitudes do not always lead to actual purchases. This diagram helps explain how attitudes work in real life. The image shows how cognitive, affective, and behavioral components interact to form an overall attitude. Marketing efforts can target any one of these components, but consistency between them is crucial. For example, a consumer may believe a brand is high quality cognitive, but if they feel poor or annoyed by its advertising effective, they may not intend to buy it behavioral. So this lack of component consistency weakens attitude strength and predictability. Therefore, effective marketing strategy aims to align belief, emotion, and action to create stronger and more stable consumer attitude.
Hello everyone. To begin our analysis, we must first look at the source of communication. In marketing, who delivers the message is often as critical as the message itself. We evaluate sources based on credibility, specifically the dimensions of expertise and trustworthiness. When a source is perceived as an expert, customers engage in internalization, making that attitude part of their own belief system. Alternatively, we look at source attractiveness. This isn't just about aesthetics. It is about similarity and likability, which leads to identification. For instance, a doctor's endorsement of medicine leverages expertise, while a celebrity endorsement relies on the customer's desire to identify with that persona. A final fascinating concept here is the sleeper effect, where a message from a low credibility source actually gains persuasive power over time as consumers forget the source but remember the information. This tells us that source impact is dynamic, not static. So, moving from the source to the message structure, we examine how the construction of arguments dictates its efficacy. Marketers choose between rational appeals, which target cognitive evaluation, and emotional appeals like fear or humor, which target the affective component of attitudes. A key strategic choice is message framing. While one-sided arguments work well with loyalists, two-sided arguments, which acknowledge and refute a counter-argument, are far more effective for skeptical or highly educated audiences because they enhance perceived honesty. Central to this is elaboration likelihood model, ELM. If our audience is highly involved, we must provide strong, logical arguments through the central route. If they are less involved, we rely on peripheral route, using surface-level cues like catchy music or effective visuals to nudge their attitude in our favor. Attitude-based segmentation. Now, how do we apply this to market segmentation? Rather than just looking at demographics like age or income, we segment based on the ABC model of attitudes: affect, behavior, and cognition. By understanding whether a segment is driven by affective responses or cognitive evaluations, we can group consumers into more precise categories. This leads us to benefits segmentation. For example, in the electric vehicle market, one segment may be cognitive, focusing on the utilitarian benefit of fuel savings. Another segment might be affective or value expressive, purchasing the car because it aligns with their self-identity as an environmentalist. Effective marketing recognizes these distinct attitude drivers and avoid a one-size-fits-all approach, tailoring the value proposition to the specific benefits most prized by that segment. Finally, we look at how attitudes drive product development. Using models like the Fishbone multi-attribute model, we can mathematically identify which attributes a product is lacking in the eyes of the consumer. There are three primary strategies here. First, we can change beliefs. For example, if consumers think our brand is unhealthy, we reformulate and communicate the change. Second, we can change importance weights by convincing the market that a specific feature, like sustainability, is more important than price. Lastly, we can add a new attribute entirely to differentiate ourselves from other competitors. Take the yogurt industry as an example. When brands realized consumers highly valued gut health, they didn't just change their ads, they changed their products by adding active probiotic cultures. This alignment between product attributes and consumer attitudes is the cornerstone of successful long-term innovation.